let's factor out the greatest common factor, that's called the GCF, from these two polynomials. The first one, A, is 8x plus 16. The second one, B, is 30x to the fourth y plus 12x squared y cubed. So looking at the left side, first we want to figure out what the greatest number is that those two terms have in common. Well, we have an 8 and a 16, so the greatest number that they share, the greatest number they have in common, is the number 8. So we'll be pulling out a factor of 8, but what about the power of x? What is the greatest power of x that they have in common? Well, interestingly enough, only the first term has an x, the other one doesn't. So they have none. There's no power of x that they have in common. So we're not going to be pulling any x to any power out, just the greatest number that they have in common. Thus, our 8x plus 16 is equal to pulling out the greatest number, 8, and it leaves, well, let's see, what do we have to multiply 8 by to get the 8x? We have to multiply it by x. And what do we have to multiply the 8 by to get the 16? A positive 2. Close your parenthesis, and you're finished. So you can check to make sure it's good factoring by distributing the multiplication and make sure you get the question that they ask you. It has to be the same as the question. All right, so we get 8 times x plus 8 times 2 is 8x plus 16. Now for the second problem, 30x to the fourth y plus 12x to the second y to the third, what is the greatest number that they have in common? We've got 30, we've got 12. You got to think about it. You might factor it down to figure it out. The greatest number that they have in common is the number 6. What is the greatest power of x that they have in common? Well, the first one that has a power x to the fourth. The second one has a power x to the second. So the greatest power they have in common is actually the smallest power of x that appears between the two of them. It's x to the second. Similarly, the greatest power of y that they have in common, well, check it out. The first one has y to the first, the other one has y to the third. You take the smallest power of y between them, and that will be the greatest power of x that they have y they have in common, so it's y to the first. Thus, our solution is, well, we're going to take the number, the power of x, and the power of y that they have in common, put it together, and call it 6x squared y. All right, that's the question, and that's equal to 6, the greatest common factor, 6x squared y times parenthesis. Now you ask yourself, what do I need to multiply the 6 by to get the 30? The answer is 5. What do I need to multiply the x squared by to get x to the fourth? The answer is x to the second, because I would add the exponents together. And then what do I have to multiply y by to get y? It's already y. Don't multiply it by anything. It's taken care of. Then the plus sign. And then I ask, what must I multiply the 6 by to get the number in the second term, 12? So 6 times what gives me 12? 2. And then what do I have to multiply the x squared by to get x squared? Nothing. Leave that alone. And what do I have to multiply the y by to get y to the third power? Y to the second power, because you add the exponents, 1 plus 2, you'll get the third power. And that's our answer. And you can check to make sure it's a good answer by distributing the multiplication and checking that you get the original polynomial.